سبحانه ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور انفسنا ومن سيئات اعمالنا من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له واشهد ان لا اله الا الله وحده لا شريك له واشهد ان محمدا عبده ورسوله. طيب السلام عليكم ورحمه الله وبركاته. Jazakallah khair, Lucy, for inviting me to come do the Dawah course this week and next week. I'm not sure if we're going to go more than that. But what I want to do, starting with this class, or for today at least, is get an idea from you guys how much Dawah you give. I want to answer some of the essential questions that you have. We'll do that a little bit towards the end. And then it gives me a better idea where to go for next week, inshallah. The presentation that we're giving today comes off a lecture that our brother Kamal Al-Maki had organized here in the PowerPoint. How many people have heard of Kamal Al-Maki before? Yeah? He, mashallah, gives lectures to Al-Kawthar Institute. Also, he gives this various classes and the Dawah courses from Australia to the United States and all over the country. Alhamdulillah. And I'm presenting it here in the West Coast. So I'm not going to give you the whole how to do Shahada in this course right now because it's generally about an 8-hour course. There we go over many things. But I'll give you some of the pointers that we have in that course itself. A little bit about background. My name is Abdullah Zikria. I'm the Amir for Al Institute here in Southern California. I also work at Dawah at Omar Khalid Masjid. So with regards to the Dawah that we're going to be talking about the next few weeks, where did all this information that I come from, or that I'm going to give you guys some tips and stuff like that, where did this come from? It came from our work that we did in Washington, D.C. And when I'm saying we, it's because we and Kamal Al-Maki both, we used to give Dawah on the streets in Washington, D.C. So a lot of the examples that I give you is what real life experiences that we've had, right? And this wasn't like a once in a lifetime kind of thing where we went 1 day or 2 days. So it was something consistent that we had, like 2 or 3 times a week. We'd go to the roughest parts of the community and give Dawah with many, many other brothers who were much more qualified than us. We know many brothers that give Dawah on a daily basis. They would have families, wife and kids, and they would work from 9 to 5. And then they would go to the masjid for Maghrib, and then afterwards they would just go to the street and give Dawah for 1 hour, and then they would get the groceries for their families and everything that they need, and then they would go home and make sure that their wife and kids are taken care of also. So out of seeing their motivation, mashallah, to give Dawah, it increased us in the purpose of giving Dawah. And Kamal Al-Maki, alhamdulillah, mashallah, he's the mastermind of the whole thing, right? Where he'll see what everybody else is doing in Dawah, and he'll just write it down, and he'll put it in a presentation, and then he'll try to teach it, like here. Right? So everything that you have here is him taking notes and being in the background and learning what we do giving Dawah. One thing in regards to giving Dawah is they want to make sure that you guys understand is that Dawah is not like a fiqh course. It's not like a fiqh course or a tafsir course or anything like that. Because Dawah itself is a very, very, very easy trade. Right? Meaning much of the Dawah that we give is situational. Right? So there isn't a textbook answer that we can give on for a solution or an answer. Right? Because Dawah is that type of occupation, many of the answers that you have already may be answers that I don't have, right? But it doesn't mean that your answer is incorrect. Right? Rather, you can put a lot of input into the teachings or even the techniques that I used. I can receive a lot of those more information, more tips from you guys, right? So we want to make sure that this class is more interactive, so it's just not like you listening to me and taking notes, but also contemplating back and putting situations and maybe giving an answer saying, oh listen, I gave Dawah one time and I gave this answer and I think it will work really well. Okay? So generally, and we're going to talk about this a little bit in the future, is we don't have many rules when it comes to Dawah. Okay? It's all, it's all open for game. So the process, the techniques that we're using came over time and the experience that we've had. Okay? It's not something that we just came up with at all. Also, we've been mentioning some of the analogies that we use in the Quran, right? And many of the Dawah techniques that we actually teach you guys is stuff that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses in the Quran, for us. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses a lot more Dawah techniques than we sometimes realize. Right? Because of course Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows us better than we know ourselves. Right? So, and who can tell me what the occupation of the prophets were? All prophets, without even being hands up. Shepherds. They're shepherds. Okay, what else? But not all the prophets were shepherds, right? Sulaiman alayhi salam was the king. He was never a shepherd, right? Never was in the need of being a shepherd. What was the occupation that all of them had from the time of Adam to the time of Prophet, other than Jerusalem? Anybody else? They are guides. They are callers to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That was their number one occupation. Okay? And that was the number one occupation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered them to give. They had no choice in the matter. Right? And when they had no choice in the matter, they also loved that occupation more than anything else. Right? And that occupation also changed life and made history. Right? It changed policy, it changed governments, it changed the lives of individuals. Right? And always it changed it to the positive. Even at times when the community didn't think how much positive of a message these prophets were giving, right? You would see that in the history of years later, how much of a positive effect they had on people. Understanding our obligation. Before we get into how do we learn techniques and how do we get into debates and stuff like that, we have to know why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or what's the reasons why we wanted why Dawah is so important. And of course, in Surah Al-33, and who is better in speech than the one who calls on the way of his Lord who does good deeds and says, I am amongst the Muslims. Speaking here at UCI and at the universities, I think we all get into, we always get a reality check when we come to universities, especially in the West and places like that where fitness is much greater. We realize that we need to have a Muslim identity, right? That's what we always talk about. MSAs they come together, and the reason why the MSAs come together is because they want to keep their Muslim identity, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here is talking about that Muslim identity. Right. And it's more than the clothes that we wear and the language that we speak and the prayers that we do. It's actually who we are as Muslims, everyday Muslims. And right then and there, it gives you the know-how and the ability to be able to call this message. Okay? I mean, there's something that most of us here, I think most likely all of us here, were born into. Right? And a lot of things that we know already, right? A lot of things that we know already is something that can benefit the community around us. Right? So we don't necessarily have to be a scholar in order to give the message of Islam. If we just give something for what we know, why we pray, why we read the Quran, why do we practice, right? This goes a long way. And Sahih Muslim, the Prophet says, whoever guides another to a good deed will get the reward similar to the one who performs it. Right? And extended to this hadith is another narration which says, whoever guides to a good deed will get the reward similar to the one who performs it without exceeding